everybody, welcome back to Northernlion Plays the Binding of Isaac AFTERBIRTH Plus. Very dutifully working our way through the 20s here. Feeling good, dude. 9 rate of fire, 1.43 speed, 3 HP, Book of the Dead. Ain't nothing wrong with this. This is a great start. How do we make it even greater? Well, a single spirit heart at some point would be acceptable. But honestly, just to give us deal with the devil potential so we could really take advantage of our HP. And probably not playing this guy is also a relevant, although very tantalizing thing. But apart from that, like, I mean, as compared to our last run, I got no complaints about how our, come on, give me something, thank you. I got no complaints about how our last run ended, and very few complaints about it in general, considering, you know, we got there. But it started a little bit funky. Much happier with this one, just safer. And I don't have to babble so much about fish salads. I don't know, people were probably like, why is this guy talking up Poke so much? Does he own stock in a Poke corporation? No, I don't. You know why? Because none of them have gone public yet, probably. I don't know, I feel like I'm 1 year behind on food trends, though. Maybe 2 years. Like, Poke was taking the world by storm, or at least the West Coast by storm. 2015, 2016, 2017 even. I don't know what's taking the world by storm now. Macaroons? Are we in macaroon territory? Nashville hot chicken? Hasn't really made a big inroad here. Like, don't get me wrong. I'll talk up Vancouver all the time. I think Vancouver is a fantastic food city. Excuse me, sir. There's one thing for sure that we lack. And I will not be one of those Vancouverites who's like, you know, anything you can do, we can do better. I've been to a couple, like, American... Sorry, the words got stuck in my throat. I've been to a couple American-style barbecue restaurants. You know, brisket, macaroni, 8 slices of white bread. They haven't done it for me. I think we're still lagging behind, you know, our southern counterparts when it comes to that. There's no doubt about it. And pizza, I'll level with you. It's not a city for you if you're a big fan of, like, I would say more traditional style pizza. We got a lot of pizza that, you know, has a handful of arugula thrown on it. Took me a while to get there, but I love it now. And there's a few, like, New York style places that are pretty good. But if you're a big pizza aficionado, it's probably not the place for you. I'm just letting you know. In case you had $1.5 million in your bank account you wanted to burn by buying a place 45 minutes outside of the city center. And yet, despite that, pizza's a deal breaker for you, then by all means, you know. I'm just trying to keep you informed is the thing. Let me grab this here. This is... I got the feeling... Ooh... that this is going to be a good deal with the devil. This feels like one of those runs that's so strong and it's so resource rich early on that I really expect a deal with the devil that has like Brimstone or Mom's Knife or like 2 out of 3 guppy items and we just start cruising. This has all the makings of a very, very, very solid setup. Now, to be fair, there's no guarantee that happens. I mean, it's a little bit presumptuous to assume it to begin with, I suppose. I mean, how do I know? I don't know. I just have the sneaking suspicion that, you know, sometimes you just get the vibe. Usually the vibe is wrong. I have no respect for the vibe. Don't take it out of context, okay? I'm talking about the Vive, the HTC Vive. Maybe you've heard of it, probably. It's going to change gaming forever. Where are we at in the VR days? Now that we don't do Roundtable anymore, I've lost track of where we're supposed to be from a virtual reality context. I relied on Bear Taffy keeping me abreast of the situation. Whoa, stay away. I'll tell you, you know, I've been going to PAX West for like literally, I've been for like 7 years in a row, right? Maybe 8. The number of futures of gaming I've seen there, it's a lot. I'm not saying there will never be a future of gaming. I'm just saying, like, you know, first PAX I went to, I remember vividly. I saw a man wearing a virtual reality headset, holding a plastic gun, and walking on a 6-way treadmill. And I went, dude, that's it. It's the future of gaming. What could possibly be? He's reached the point where you just, you know, I should have probably popped it over here, but whatever. He's reached the point where he's just living in a digital world. But I think, you know, as I've gotten older and gotten to know myself more, oh, dude, so solid. What I want out of games has changed. I feel like a lot of people, and I don't think it's an independent thought that people come to. I think it's, you know, from talking to other people or, you know, comparing it to other mediums. You know, I think what people believe, a lot of people, I should say, is like the objective best case scenario, like the platonic ideal. Well, that didn't work out so well. For video games is like when video games are indistinguishable from real life one-to-one. And I'll admit, graphically, like photorealism, A, would be very impressive. And also B, for specific types of games, would probably be, you know, I mean, it's hard to imagine how you could do better, I guess is a good way to describe it, right? Hold on, let me see what we got here. You always got to think when you get pills for a second. I'll take the damage because I'm lazy. Then I'll come in here, grab this, and teleport out. But as I've gotten older, you know, and I think that drive for photorealism and immersion is what has made, like, you know, virtual reality such like a high ticket item for so long, is that people are like, okay, dude, this is it. You're going to feel like you're actually murdering people on alien planets. I used to think that was what I wanted too. Is like, dude, only reason I got a dang old controller in my hand is because I ain't got one of those 6-way treadmills yet. But now that I'm, you know, I know what I like. What I like more is mechanics now. I feel like for me, most of the gaming growth is done, in terms of my personal enjoyment, is done in the design space as opposed to, you know, technological marvels. Like, I think I've come to the realization that for me, at least, you know, when I played Project Gotham Racing 2 on the original Xbox for the first time, check this out, by the way. Let's get maximized Book of the Dead returns. I thought it looked exactly like a real city. And, you know, you're going to be, if you go and look up a screenshot, you're going to be like, Ryan, that's a JPEG. Yes, but at the time, it was the highest fidelity JPEG I'd ever seen in a video game in my life. Coming at you at a blistering 23.37 frames per second. So I've come to the... And maybe it's just because my eyes are bad, to be honest, but no matter, when I look at a game, if it's on a next gen piece of hardware, like as soon as those PS5 demos start coming out, I know that my brain is going to be like, that's photorealism, dude. It's always going to believe that it's photorealism. So graphics, immersion, it isn't the be-all end-all for me, although I wouldn't say that I'm ignorant to it. But I don't really want to, like, I don't know, my goal for games is not like an Assassin's Creed where it feels like I'm really in ancient Cyprus, you know? It's not for me. It's the same like people, you know, they think that, well, maybe that's not where I'm going to go with this here. I was thinking like for movies, people are like, I'll take it. Actually, it's what annoys me sometimes in movies. Like, there's a director, he directed The Favorite. His name is Yorgos Lanthimos. I always call him Lanthimios, but that's just because we're close. Not because I don't know his name, obviously. We're good friends. But sometimes one of the criticisms of his movies that comes up quite often, and his movies are very critically acclaimed and pretty successful as well, so it's not like he's hurting too much. But one of the criticisms of his movies that consistently comes up from people that don't like them is that people go like, nobody talks like that. Yeah, so what? They're in a movie. This didn't actually happen. I mean, one of the movies is called The Lobster. And, you know, the premise of the movie is that, I mean, at least abstractly, it's a modern, like, mundane dystopia where if you're, like, single as an adult, you go to basically this, like, summer camp. And if you don't find the mates within 30 days, you get turned into an animal of your choice. Why? Here's the thing, CinemaSins. It doesn't matter. It's a story, you know. Like I do sometimes. I get annoyed, and I've mentioned it a few times. That like I feel like, and I'm not blaming YouTube necessarily, but I feel like a lot of film criticism online is essentially like, you know, well, why would they turn you into an animal? It doesn't make sense. What is it for, like, lower carbon footprint or something? The thing is, like, you know, the movie does not exist to tell. Well, not all movies, at least, exist to tell a story that's coherent with the way that the modern world works. Some movies exist as a way to explore, you know, themes. Or in this case, the movie is just it's an absurd comedy, really. It's very dark, but it's meant to be funny, as bizarre as that sounds. So, like, I don't see anybody ever go to the bathroom in this movie. What's up with that? You know, that kind of criticism just makes me cringe inside of my skin, to be honest. I know cringe is a loaded word too, but why wouldn't the character just call the police? You know, I get what you're saying, but like, I don't know. I just sometimes worry that, and I was definitely this guy, here's why, let me rephrase. Here's why I like Mystery Science Theater 3000. I think people sometimes get Mystery Science Theater 3000 and, you know, riff tracks and et cetera, confused. And they think that the point of it is to make fun of the movie. That is true to an extent, I think. And everybody gets different stuff out of it, okay? But, you know, for me, Mystery Science Theater 3000 works because they crack jokes along with the movie. Yeah, you know, it's not that they've bested the movie necessarily. It's that the movie is bad, but they're still kind of like working in conjunction with the bad movie to make it even more enjoyable by using it as an engine to generate jokes. Whereas I feel what a lot of people glean from it is the best thing you can do to a bad movie is just shout plot holes at the screen. Well, where's the mother? I don't understand. She was here earlier. Yeah, what are we supposed to believe? This car runs on some kind of miracle gasoline that never runs out? Like, come on, you know, just like, I'm not saying suspend your disbelief because I think that's an unfair criticism, but like, you know, is that the point of the movie? I feel like for some people there's like a movie's hierarchy of needs that I just can't relate to for the most part, where they're like, you know, as long as the movie makes coherent sense, then we can start to talk about the other stuff going on. I shouldn't have taken that HP. That was not great. Dude, honestly, I don't think we want Guppy's tail. I'm happy with the flying. So I guess maybe the HP was okay to take, now that I think about it. Let's go check this this boss trap room real quick, because I'm getting a little anxious. You know, Sack Dagger can only do so much with our relatively low DPS right now. I just feel like there's, you know, and if you know how to watch movies, you're an adult. I'm not trying to make any enemies here. But there's people who are like, okay, I heard what you said about the movie Oldboy, but at one point, Odesu shoots his pistol that only has 6 shots 7 times without reloading. What, are we supposed to believe that this is some kind of magic revolver that has 7 chambers in it? It's like, I guess at this point, every movie has to employ one reality consultant who's like, well, in scene 1, you show the janitor cleaning up the floor, and yet there's dust on the floor 35 minutes later. We're supposed to believe the dust fairy just came in, and why are you off center? That's freaking me out. It's like a consumable was supposed to spawn there and didn't. The stuff you notice or maybe imagine after playing this game for so long. By the way, I'm open to criticism here because I don't think I've played the best Isaac game so far, but we have dueling philosophies on this run. Book of the Dead is fantastic, but it works best when we can stay away from enemies so we don't lose our orbitals immediately after getting them. Unfortunately, our best damage dealer by far is Sack Dagger. Without having Sack Dagger, you know, it's going to take us a really long time to kill enemies. Might even be more dangerous that way. Out of these, they're both fun items, but I prefer Monstro's Lung, I think. Even though, I mean, it doesn't ruin anti-grav. It actually just makes the Tears upgrade have no downside, so... It ruins the tear effect, but the tears up effect is still ever present here. And it's the same with video games, you know? It's like I was talking about it on stream one day, and, you know, there's some people, and again, this is not a knock like, oh, I've got such a wrinkly brain, I can appreciate artistic complexity, you know? It's a matter of personal preference, and also probably stuff that you've, you know, watched as you've grown up, so you've tailored your film taste to what's familiar to you, and I've tailored my film taste to what's familiar to me. But there are people out there who genuinely think, like, if a writer doesn't, or a filmmaker of any sort, doesn't put, like, a concrete ending into their movie, it's a sign of, like, ineptness. Like, they've done it to be like, you know, well, I couldn't think of how to end it, so it just sort of ends in media res. And I definitely, I mean, I don't see it that way. Some of my favorite movie endings are endings where, you know, you don't know necessarily where the rest of the, you know, story would go from here, so you sort of get to fill in your own blanks. Like, one of the most common, it's not one of my favorite film endings, I'm not going to go that contrarian, but, you know, one of the movies that gets the most flack for it is No Country for Old Men, which just, I mean, it's a great movie, unbelievably good movie. One of the best movies of the 2000s, for sure. Not just the decade, but maybe even the millennia, but anyway. It just sort of ends, you know? You're expecting maybe some sort of big showdown between some of the major characters, but then instead, you know, it just kind of ends. And it ends with a, you know, a meditative thought. It's not like the movie just cuts to black, but, you know, The Lobster's another one. It kind of ends on a cliffhanger. You know, Inception to some extent. I like endings like that, at least when I think they're done well, which is kind of a cop-out. But there are genuinely people who are like, what, you couldn't figure out how to untie the Milanese knot, huh? I don't know. I'm not trying to get up my own butt about it. I'm being sincere. I'm like, well, hey, you don't appreciate art, sweetheart. It's not really like that. It's more just like, you know, I feel like it's a little naive to look at like a Hollywood movie and be like, well, they couldn't figure out how to end it. Are you kidding me? They sent the characters to outer space and put a man who gets extremely tiny inside the butt of a purple man with a very powerful glove. You don't think they have the imagination to be like, here's how it ends? You ever see Primer? Anyway, I'm just saying, people, you know, these writers, they've got good imaginations for the most part. It's not, just sort of end it there and see what happens. Another good ending, I think, is sometimes, you know, a movie has to end where it ends. Otherwise, if you kept it going, you'd end up in an extremely weird position. Like, a good example for me, and I'm going to spoil the ending of Fight Club to some extent. If you haven't seen Fight Club, well, you know, first off, it's been out for almost, I mean, literally 20 years this year, so y'all have had your chance. Also, there's been a big preamble here that I've deliberately made overly long, so if you're like, I'm watching it tonight for the first time, you know, go ahead. It's good. Misunderstood by a certain subset of the community, but good anyway. You know, the movie ends climactically, and it ends with a lot of questions about, like, where would you go from here? But I think that's what makes the ending of the movie actually work. Because if you then had, like, you know, a post-credits scene where Tyler Durden is, like, the new president of, you know, Earth 2.0 or something like that, you know, the movie becomes very strange. Sometimes it makes more sense to present, an ending that has an unanswerable question, and then let the viewer go from there. That's my 2 cents on the subject. And how did we get talking about this? Well, it's really just the idea, that like, the platonic ideal for any medium is that it's indistinguishable from real life. I disagree greatly. We don't want any of that garbage there. If movie characters don't talk like real life individuals, is it a bad thing? No. Is it a good thing? Also no. It depends on the movie. You ever see the Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Rian Johnson movie? This is before Rian Johnson became the most hated director on the planet. Brick from 2005. It's got Lucas Haas in it. It's a great movie. It is all the people in that movie talk. Let me tell you what it is. It's a murder mystery in high school, but all of the characters talk like they're in a 1930s film noir. Sounds ridiculous, right? I know, if you're extremely intelligent, Nobel Prize worthy, you're probably like, I'm cringing through my skin. But it's a great movie. It really is. I saw it at the cool indie theater in my hometown, because it didn't come out to the major theater, when I was like 18 years old. And I was like, this movie, I didn't say it slaps, but I went, wow, what an interesting film, probably. It was before I got the cool guy vernacular. What cool guy vernacular? You know what, buddy? I'm hip. I'm with it. If people in that movie talked like normal high schoolers in 2005, 2006, that movie would have sucked. It's a little bit of a gimmicky way of getting some charm, but the movie's better as a result of it, I just worry a little bit that I hope that the platform on which I make my living has not contributed to, the rise of film like a hyper-realism. That's why I always make the same joke where, whenever any... Ooh, dude, this is a tough one, but I'm going to give it a try. Whenever anybody has like what I consider a very mundane criticism about a film that doesn't actually matter, I always hit you with the overly reductive, yeah, and we never see Batman take a pee in the movie either. We expected to believe that his suit just filters his urine into drinkable water? I'd be surprised. I mean, who even invented that? Alfred? And that's not fair, because there are definitely movies with like real plot holes. Like, I'll tell you, perfect example. You know what I'm going to bring up because I bring it up every time. The perfect example is Signs. I'll tell you straight up. The fact that the aliens in Signs are allergic to water, it is kind of a plot hole. And I'm not hesitating to say, I'm thinking it through in my head. I'm like, well, why would they go to a planet where the atmosphere contains, a poisonous gas? Well, like our atmosphere contains poisonous gas as well. It's just in a low enough concentration and mixed with other substances that it doesn't actually kill us. But, we expected to believe that humans breathe oxygen gas, even though oxygen gas is so highly flammable. If it came into contact with fire, the atmosphere would. You get the idea. But still, I think it's a weak plot point for sure that they're allergic to water. That being said, I still like the movie known as Signs, and I think people sometimes they let themselves get dragged. And by the way, I know at this point. Here's the thing, we're 22 minutes into the episode. This is what we're talking about today, all right? I apologize. We'll tell some more jokes about Tyrion Lannister on the next one, I guess. I'm just giving you my 2 cents, and then things started to move quick, and now I'm in over my head, okay? But I think sometimes people get themselves drawn into essentially bad faith arguments, where you're like, you don't know about the aliens. You don't know. Maybe the aliens were so desperate and this was the only planet that had any resources that they chose. Maybe they were fleeing from the Silver Surfer destroying their planet. So they had to go to a planet. There was nothing they could do, dude, even though they're allergic to it. I think you could write yourself out of that hole. But moreover, I don't think that's where you need to go with the argument, is to try to erase the plot hole, which I think definitely, you could argue exists. I think where you go with the argument instead is you go, yeah, you're right, there's a plot hole there, but at the same time, It's an effective thriller. And if once I saw that, it just took me so far out of the movie, I could no longer believe Rory Culkin's performance as Child with Asthma. You know, if that's your prerogative, I guess that's your prerogative. Basically, what I'm saying is relax, nerds, myself included. But how is Tony Stark gonna take a dump on Titan? Some kind of space toilet? Again, it's not really a fair criticism on my part. I apologize, but it is very funny for me to say. So I'll tell you, this run ended up being a lot spookier than I thought it was gonna be. Yo, you dirty dog. Dirty dog. Thank you for the demon hearts. The chosen ones. Oh my god. Finally, we get a damage upgrade of incredible value. Dude, here's the thing. I'm worried that if we forget me now, we'll actually die. We have, we haven't gone very far, and we'd get 4 new items. But simultaneously, like, we know where we're going, and I don't want to risk getting ourselves into a hole. This run already got more difficult than I expected it to get. I'm going to be content, as much of a coward as it makes me, I'm going to be content to take my likely victory, hopefully cemented by a Maw of the Void against these many, many envy individuals. None? That's a surprise. Gulp. And honestly, as soon as we get our win, just bounce and then try not to spend as much willy-nilly HP on our next run, because it didn't really get impossible, but certainly got a little bit more close to oblivion than I was hoping for. Either way, thanks for watching. That's 24 in a row, the Kiefer Sutherland number. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button. Helps out a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. See ya!